I did a video a few days ago about the concept of the charismatic, the charisma, and Talented Tadpole says, I'm talking about Russell Brand, and Talented Tadpole says, I find him creepy and repulsive, and acknowledge that he has charisma. You described it well. Well, I'm rather grateful about that. As someone says, the charisma of a snake oil salesman who becomes a street corner preacher. He's more grifter and a manipulator. He's also a very bad actor. Well, he may be all of these things, but the point is, when he enters a room, you notice. And that's the point about charisma. You notice. And it doesn't matter whether this person is good or bad or what he's selling or she's selling. It's that you turn and the room changes when they walk in. And so many people, politicians, actors, entertainers, and dodgy individuals certainly can all be charismatic. The fact that the word has, I think, its origins in religious language doesn't mean that it can't be and hasn't been very effectively repurposed. But it's not about popularity. It's about impact, the impact that somebody has, and the way they seem to be able to channel energy. And certainly in the history is littered with people who have undoubted charisma. The charisma of kings, which comes with the job, like, for example, Henry VIII. Not a nice person, I think, not cuddly by any means, but certainly charismatic. The crown brings that. And from that point, you can see how that coronation bestows is like a gift bestowed by God on the person who wears the crown, and the same thing is true of the person who has been cloaked in fame and who has embraced that. There's a responsibility that goes with charisma, but it's not always adopted. And it's not always positive. That charisma is there, however you use it. And I think of it. I think it very, very much in terms of the description by St. Paul that it is 100% a gift. In St. Paul, in Corinthians, he says, "Ala diatis aftis to pneumatos didati pneumatika charismata." There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. And the word charisma comes from the root charis, which means grace, favor, or gift. Charis refers to the unearned kindness or the goodwill, often seen as a divine gift. And charisma is derived from a gift freely given, particularly those gifts and talents which are divine or spiritual. Charis itself is a form of favor, a kindness, a grace, and the ma bit on the end indicates something that is the result of an action. So making charisma is a gift of grace, a gift of favor. In the New Testament, it often refers to spiritual gifts or the abilities given by the Holy Spirit, or as you see in 1 Corinthians 12. And in the broader Greek world, it can simply refer to any gift that brings benefit, particularly those of a divine or generous nature. And there are different types of gifts. We, as Paul says in 12, wrote Romans 12:6. We have different gifts according to the grace given to us. But charisma is not a personality trait or an aura. It's a spiritual utility, a grace tool for building up the church, not building a personal brand. But in the modern world, so you have to contrast this spiritual humility, which is where the word was originally intended, with this modern understanding. And today we say someone is charismatic, we refer not to the gifts of the Spirit, but to this secular enchantment. And remember, the word enchanting is about being captured, a blend of confidence, magnetism, eloquence, and presence. And all of this goes back to Max Weber, the German sociologist who redefined charisma in the early 20th century in Economy and Society in 1922. He says, a certain quality of an individual personality by virtue of which they are set apart from ordinary people and treated as endowed with supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities. So he's secularized Paul, and the divine source is gone, but the effect remains quasi-mystical. Charisma now justifies authority, it inspires fellowship and following, it legitimizes leadership, especially in times of crisis. And examples of modern charisma abound. Barack Obama, with his cadence and coolness textbook case, lifted to prominence by words like hope and yes we can. His rhetoric invokes a sort of messianic call. In 2004, he said, there's not a liberal America and a conservative America, there's a United States of America. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's even if someone else wrote that for him, the performance still bears traces of its Pauline origin, in unity, inspiration, transcendence. Closer to the theatrical word, of course, would be Princess Diana, captivating the public with what many described as her radiant presence. Her charisma was rooted in vulnerability and empathy, not grandeur. Conversely, Donald Trump, undeniably charismatic, channels a coercive form of charisma, populist, divisive, narcissistic, but honed through the media. And as Weber warns, charismatic authority is unstable. It either becomes bureaucracy or it collapses into cult. And in Britain, one might recall Tony Blair's early years, his flair, his rhetorical poise, his media-savvy image. But charisma fades without substance, and Tony Blair is an irrelevance today. Greta Thunberg, young, seemingly shy, radiates that moral charisma, the conviction and clarity that compels others to follow, especially the young. But why does this matter? Because today we are inundated with artificial charisma, influencers, charismatic leaders, self-help moguls, all selling aura, confidence, this is what you need, brand. But as Paul warns, without love and truth, these gifts are hollow. So 1 Corinthians 13:1, if I speak in tongues of men or angels but don't have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. I still create noise. I am still charismatic. So what begins as a gift becomes a gimmick. What begins as grace becomes glamour. In this age of branding and performance, there is a chance to recover that spirit, that charisma of service to others rather than to self. But you know those key quotations: 1 Corinthians 12:4, Romans 12:6, 1 Corinthians 13:1, Max Weber, and these are the key tools in trying to define what charisma is. And Russell Brand has it in dollops. Does that mean he's a nice person? Does that mean he's a good person? No. It means he can command the stage. And I find it so extraordinary that this is a word and an expression that is so easily misconstrued. Charisma is a wonderful word to describe something which is so specific and also intangible. It's about being it's about feeling that somebody is compelling. It's about feeling that somebody is bewitching. And to be bewitched, to be in the past we would have talked about people having the evil eye. We would have talked about people being fairies, being touched, being fey, being touched by the magical. Today we talk about people being charismatic. It's the same idea.